Hello and welcome back to Lessons from the Ashes. I am your host, Stephanie Rose of West Rose Media, and we have an amazing guest today who I met on the internet and then in real life at Pride this year. And I am super excited because we have another amazing story of rising from the ashes, all the complications in between, and some really heartfelt things in here. Just a trigger warning, we are probably going to be talking about loss during pregnancy. So if that is not for you, come to the next episode. Hi, welcome. Please introduce yourself. I am so excited to have you here with us.
Hi. But yeah, I'm so super excited. This has been a long time coming. So thank you. My name is Aditi Loveridge. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Pregnancy and Infant Loss Support Center. And I also run Seeds of Growth Grief Education program, as well as I am the board co-chair of Skipping Stones Foundation here in Europe.
Amazing. What a list of things that you do to help the community. I love all of the things that you do, especially the pregnancy loss one. That one for sure. Always this time of year actually really comes around as memories for me. So I'm really glad we get to talk about it. So the first question that I ask every single guest on this episode is to tell us your rising from the ashes story. So what was the time where you had to burn it all down and start again? We want to hear your story.
Well, I think I've had to do this quite a few times in my life. I think, though, the most significant in this context is when I was married, my then partner at the time, and I decided to try and build a family. And I was working as a social worker at the time in women's health primarily. And just didn't think anything of it. I had never really heard about pregnancy loss, miscarriage. Like I heard about it, but it was something that was like in the back of my mind and, doesn't happen to me. Didn't even think about it. And then my first pregnancy ended up in an ectopic pregnancy loss. At the time, as I said, I was working as a social worker. So I was actually really used to, and my job was to advocate for those that didn't have a voice. And yet when I experienced this ectopic pregnancy loss, I experienced systemic racism in the healthcare setting at the same time as going through this pregnancy loss. So I almost died because the doctor at the time who saw me didn't believe my dates of conception, accused me of being hypersexual, talked in a contrived East Indian accent, and then sent me home, where I was already bleeding internally quite significantly. And I couldn't get care for about a week after. And then I ended up having to go into emerge on Christmas Day of that year. And then finally having somebody hearing and seeing me of what was going on. So not only in that moment was I dealing with the loss of a pregnancy that my partner and I were wanting and were trying for. I didn't have any living children at this time. There was this added layer of, holy shit, like, what just happened? And I was completely silenced in that moment, as oppression will do. And it was it was like years. I just kind of like, okay, I think that happened. That was a thing. I don't really know what to do with this. I've been raised to, not ruffle feathers, just kind of, I'm an immigrant. I am an immigrant. I'm a child of parents that, uprooted their entire lives and moved here for the betterment of me. I should just be grateful that I got healthcare at all. So kind of put it in the back of my head, went forward. We decided to try again, got pregnant for the second time. Ended up having a later term loss again. This one I labored and birthed at home because I really did want to go the medical route because I didn't have a choice with the ectopic pregnancy. So had a second, lost that. And it sounds kind of weird to say, but that second loss was actually quite empowering for me because I let my body naturally do what it needs to do. And I was able to see that it could do that, even though it didn't result in a living child. It was just like this moment of like full circle, like I can trust my body to do what it needs to do. And then it was devastating, and we did not again have any living children still at this time. And then I got pregnant for the third time, which has resulted in my 12-year-old living kiddo. And that pregnancy was argumentatively one of the actually hardest times of my whole journey. So there was the acute losses, the acute grief that I experienced. And then I was pregnant and reaching these milestones at 20 weeks, 25 weeks, 28 weeks that I had not met before. And I was full of anxiety. Like I could not connect with the pregnancy, the baby. I was just so like in my anxious mind that I didn't believe that this baby was coming home. And I disconnected from everything, from my partner, from my life, all of it. And baby did come home. But because my mind had really shut down to the idea that I was going to be bringing a living child home, it was a big shock when, when that living child was with me. And I had severe postpartum anxiety, and that lasted for well over a year. I would argue that I still have some postpartum anxiety, in just the way that I parent. And it's 12 years later, but I had felt so isolated in that pregnancy because everyone just kept telling me to be grateful. You should be grateful. You haven't been this pregnant before. And like, everything is fine. And nobody wanted to sit and have the real conversation with me of, yeah, and what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't? And, or how are you just feeling in this moment? The anxiety is real. And how are you moving through that? No one wanted to have those conversations because everybody's very uncomfortable with death and dying, especially when it's around babies. Ended up having severe postpartum anxiety. I was still, when all of this happened, I gave birth to my living kiddo. I knew that I didn't want to go back into social work in the traditional sense because I wanted to spend as much time with my child as I could. But I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I started taking all of these trainings. I became a doula. I became a loss doula, postpartum doula, mindfulness meditation teacher, a life coach. I did like all of these trainings, not knowing what I was going to do with any of them, till one of my friends, about 22 weeks pregnant, found out that her daughter had incompatible with life diagnosis. And so she was going to have to birth and say goodbye to her daughter. And so she asked me to be in the room with her. So I went, and I was the only one outside of her and her partner that got to meet her daughter. But I knew in that moment that I was meant to be there for a reason. And that reason wasn't necessarily for me to support her in that moment in the room. It was that journey after. And she had all those questions of, well, do we try again? What if this happens again? Is there other people that have gone through termination for medical reasons? Nobody's talking about that. I found that with ectopic pregnancy. I'd heard of miscarriage, but not ectopic pregnancies. So termination for medical reasons, there's all this stigma around it. And so seeking community and seeking like different ways of supporting herself. And that was when I was like, you know what? I am going to start coaching. I'm going to start coaching folks that are going through pregnancy and infant loss. And that's what I started to do. And I got one client and then I got another. And then suddenly my coaching business got really busy. And coaching with some people, I would like talk to one client and then I talk to another client and I'm like, oh, their stories are so, like they would find so much support in each other. And because I, have that kind of social work community mindset, always that hat on all the time, I was like, they need to meet. Somehow these folks need to meet, but I can't introduce them because, confidentiality and all that. So what I decided to do is start hosting these social connection groups, which was basically not a support group. It was a way for people to just come together socially, and they could talk about their stories if that felt right or not. They could talk about the weather or the Kardashians or whatever else was happening in pop culture. And those started to get really well attended. Then one day I got a call from a high-risk OBGYN here in Calgary, Dr. Cooper, and she said, a lot of my patients are clients of yours, and they're doing remarkably better, like emotionally, mentally. And so I would like to meet you and know who you are. So I met her for a coffee. And at that coffee is when I threw out this idea of the Pregnancy and Infant Loss Support Center, a charity that is a community space where folks that are navigating loss at any point of the journey, any type of loss, can come and connect in diverse ways. So like support groups, peer connection, professional counseling, coaching, all of the things. And she said it was such a need. And that was kind of the push that I needed, because I was like, okay, it's not only me, it's not only my clients, it's not bereaved parents only that need this space. It is medical professionals that are needing a space to actually refer people when they're going through this. So I started the organization. And when I started the organization, I went into it with kind of, I don't know what the word is, but not ruffling the feathers. As I said before, I was taught to not ruffle the feathers. And so I went into the organization to not ruffle feathers. I'm doing a good thing, starting a charity for pregnancy and infant loss. And as I sat with it more, and as my co-founder Danielle, who is a white woman, um, heard my story of the systemic racism that I experienced, she continued to tell me, Aditi, that is a story that needs to be told. And so I started telling it, and I started telling it more, and I started to get louder. And then I really quickly realized that I cannot advocate for pregnancy and infant loss without advocating for the intersectionalities of someone's identity that complicates their journey. So BIPOC folks, queer folks, trans folks, gender diverse folks, all of the folks that are not normally represented in the space. We have created a space where all types of people, all types of and forms of losses are supported in the space. And so had to get really loud, and I had to have a conversation with my very Indian dad, who was like, don't ruffle feathers, to be like, guess what, Dad? I'm gonna ruffle some feathers. And I remember that conversation, how it went. It was like, but you like, he's like, but what if people then think that it's the other people, like white people and straight people, what if they think that this place isn't for them? I'm like, well, then they don't understand the work that I'm doing. And now, like 6 years later, he like gets just as riled up when I talk about stuff, and he's like, yeah, like, no, that's totally true, and you should do, like, I think he's quite proud. He has seen that, yes, we are an immigrant family and we can appreciate all that this country has lent us. And we can also say, hey, there's some significant systemic issues that need to be addressed here. And so I think that is like fundamentally my rising from the ashes story. I took like a huge loss and a huge pain, and I continue to put it into purpose and to create spaces for folks to find their voice and to know that it's okay, and to actually like fight for change is hopefully what I'm doing.
That. Thank you so much for sharing that story. That a lot of that hit really home for me too. I also had losses, and it's scary and it's isolating, and it is something that makes you feel so much shame, and to have actual support is unreal. I also had such severe, because I had my last child after a loss, and the amount of anxiety that I had during that pregnancy and afterwards was unreal. And I'm so glad that there's people like you that help people out. Something that you said twice in that caught my attention so much was that you should just be grateful. Twice you said that you should just be grateful for what you did have. And I want to talk about that a little bit more, because like, if you had just been grateful, then you wouldn't have done any of this and been started to help all these other people. And I think that a lot of women especially, are like, oh, I should just be grateful for what I have. And it's like, no, like, you can be mad as hell and also grateful, and also say, not again, not for other people.
Yeah, I actually think you're totally right. Like, I actually like with this, my losses I experienced, for a while, I just put it away, tucked it away. And then when Danielle, my co-founder, started to say, share your story and start talking about it, then I felt anger and I felt rage. And of course, like, that to me was like, oh my gosh, like, don't, that's not okay. Don't feel rage. Don't feel angry. Like, that's not what you're supposed to do. And what I've learned is, when we get to that stage of like being angry, that's when the actual like healing happens. We need to get angry. I think we need to get angry at the situation, maybe even if for some people in ourselves, for some choices we've made, we need to get angry. I think anger is such an important part of that healing journey. And I think that if we stay only in gratitude, yeah, like, we're not ever going to be able to to move forward. I don't think we need to get angry. That's my personal opinion. I have found such healing in the anger. Like for that, when I got divorced, like I don't think I would have healed from like divorce if I didn't allow myself to go there with the anger.
I completely agree. And for a while there, I felt a lot of guilt around my anger because I was like, it's not my fault. It's not anyone's fault. I'm like, well, it's got to be somebody's fucking fault. Like, who's going to take the blame here? And it was really hard because then I heard conversations, and there's always people having conversations who have never been through it and say the most ignorant shit. And you're like, they're like, oh, well, just be grateful. And, at least your body can do that.
Yeah.
Or
Oh gosh.
worse is like, well, at least you have another child. I'm like, cool. That doesn't help at all.
At all. Yeah.
And especially even like the difference between like people would say, oh, like you lost the baby like as a couple. And I'm like, no, that my partner at the time was not pregnant, had felt none of these things, was like, oh, okay, I guess try that again. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? My life just, completely erupted.
Yes.
And people do not understand that the anger is what helps fuel you. And like for the first loss I ever had was when I was very young and I got pregnant and it was not consensual. And then I lost the baby alone in a foreign country. I had no access to healthcare. And it was very, very scary. I thought I was being punished by God. I was like kept it a secret for like my whole life. I was like a huge thing. And then when I finally had supportive care through my second pregnancy with midwives, I was able to share that story. And they were like, whoa, have we never talked about this? And I was like, no. And they're like, well, we need to, because the rest of your children's lives like depends on it. Your life does too. And then I got really, really angry and everyone's like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I'm just processing something from so many years ago, but it affected how I was looking at the real life children that I had so many years later. And it's so, I love that you talk to people even after the fact, because I think there's quite a few people who've had these things in the past and they just never talked about it. Everyone's like, just hush, hush, off you go.
Yeah, that's like a really big thing. A lot of people think the word when you hear pregnancy and infant loss support center, I think a lot of people think that we support majority of the people that we support are in that acute grief. And I would actually say it's probably about 40 to 50% of the folks that access us are somewhere after that original 3 to 6 months, because year 2 is often worse than year 1. And we like when I went through my second loss, I had always known that my mom had miscarriages. It was her way of it was her way of explaining the age gap between my sister and I, because there's 6 years difference. So she would always caveat like, oh, they're 6 years apart because I had 2 miscarriages, right? Kind of like this culturally accepting way of like, oh, okay, you didn't choose to have them 6 years apart, because that's kind of like culturally not okay. So I always knew that she had miscarriages, but she never talked about them in any capacity. When I had that second loss at home, my mom was with me, and so she was a witness to the pain, the very visceral trauma and the very visceral like loss that I had endured. Um, and it was in that moment, like she cried with me. And then a few days later, she said, watching you go through that, I realized how I never processed my own like miscarriages when I had them. And then over this time, seeing me do this work, she has found so much healing in the work that I'm doing. She's been able to talk about things with me that she had never talked about with anybody. And that's going, back 45 years basically, right? That she hasn't processed any of this. And so you might be a grandparent, you might be a sibling of somebody, it might just be 10 years post your own loss and something has happened, and it's because 10 years is significant and you need to talk because you never did. It's so important to have that space no matter the time, because grief doesn't have an end point. And so I think it's unreasonable to expect people to, oh, we've had this experience over here, so now 10 years later, I'm just going to be healed, when we actually we carry that with us. There's just parts of our journeys that are just always with us.
Oh, yeah. I think that really shows like the healing you're helping people do is not just like for them, it's for like their past. Like you can heal the past generations by doing your own work, and think of how much more healing there'll be for future generations because you're able to talk about it and you're telling people and you're providing these supports for people. I am really, really amazed by what you're doing.
Well, well, thank you.
Really love
Thank
it.
you. I appreciate it. It's honestly, it's like such soul-filling work. It sounds weird because like we're dealing with a lot of grief and loss and trauma. And yet like it's what gets me up in the morning, because I know I see how significant and how meaningful the support is for folks. And it really is a place that like I needed at that time. I needed a place like this. Had I had a place like this, it would have been a complete game changer.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, building something that you wish that you had,
Yeah.
because same.
Right? Yeah.
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 I'm like, "Oh my god, I wish I had me 5
Right?
years ago, 10 years ago."
Yeah.
Oh,
And so like
so
how
glad,
lucky for all the other folks that do get you now.
right?
Yeah.
Now I get to actually help other people.
Yeah.
So, when people, like, come to you and go through these programs, what kind of things do they get to experience afterwards? Like, how do they feel afterwards? Like, what things do you pull them, like, take them through? How do you actually help people? Like, if somebody is listening to this and they're like, "Oh, man, I had a loss, but it was however many years ago," like, should I even reach out? Like, what is possible?
Oh, so like so many things are possible. We I think what we do really well, and I think what we do differently, well, obviously there's that like inclusivity aspect. So like no matter what type of loss you have had, no matter who you are, like we will support you. I think we do that really well. And I think what we do really well and differently from a lot of other kind of um loss organizations is we're not going to sit here and be toxic positive about the situation. We're going to really sit with people in the not okay. Like we all hear that quote, like it's okay to not be okay, but no one actually knows how to not be okay because we say that, but then when people are not okay, everyone backs away. Um, so I think what we really do well is we allow people to not be okay. Whether that's 3 days post loss, 10 years post loss, zero judgment, you can fall apart. And I think what people walk away with is that permission, number one, like, oh, it's been 5 years since my loss and I'm still not okay. And that actually is okay. Like, no one's going to make me feel like I have to be grateful or that I should be moved on or I should be anything other than what I am in this moment. And so I think that's something we do really, really well. It's fundamentally a part of who I am. Like I can sit with my feelings. And I do. And now I've created a space to give permission and to actually help people to know what that feels and looks like. So whether it's like through counseling or whether it's through group, it's sitting with those feelings. And I think that community, they're going to walk away with community. And I think that's such a beautiful thing because whether you had community right from the beginning, if you told a few friends and then they also said, oh, I've had a loss too, and you kind of bonded in that way, or you come to us and it's been a significant amount of time since your loss and you never have spoken, just very much like what you were saying, Stephanie, like how you never spoke about that loss experience. And suddenly you're in a space where you speak it. And now there's other people that are like, yeah, like something similar, or it's been this long, or like the connection and the thread between us all is so significant. And I think that the community is so strong here. Like people make like lifelong friends and they go on vacations together and like their partners meet and they like, we have people from BC that like fly out here annually to meet up with the people they've met in group. Like it's so beautiful to be okay, like to sit in your feels and not be told that you need to be moving through it any differently. And then to find people that support you through it. I think that's what people fundamentally like will get here.
I love that because it doesn't have a timeline and there's so many things, and you process it differently as different things come,
Exactly.
you know?
100%.
Like as my life changes and now I'm like, I reflect back and I'm like, oh, like, all of a sudden it'll pop into your mind and you'll be like, well, what if that had happened? Quite often I think of like, well, what if like on birthdays or, like that child would have been this age and they're not. And
Totally.
it
Yeah.
just like comes up in just completely random times when you don't expect it.
Hmm.
And I think that's why it's so good to be able to talk about it, because you don't know when that's going to hit and when you're all of a sudden going to feel it. And if you don't have permission or somewhere to speak about it, then it gets really scary and isolating. And then nobody knows what's going on with you and you just shut them out and everyone's like, what's wrong?
Totally. And one thing that I think was like a little bit surprising for me when I started to do this work, and yeah, I would say it was surprising, is that how many people were coming to me because they recently had a pregnancy loss, and they were grieving that loss. But more than the grieving that loss, what was coming up for them was, years prior, I had an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've had this like loss of like this wanted pregnancy. And like, did I cause this by, like all of those kind of things. And like, that was a very surprising thing for me in the beginning. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, it happens so often that people will be processing something else, like a miscarriage will totally like ramp up like how they felt when they had an abortion years prior, when they thought that they had come to terms with that decision or that choice, right? And then it comes up again, and then they're like, I feel like I'm going through it all over again, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely right. Like, the things can pop up, and it's usually very unexpected, and people don't know how to navigate that. And then unfortunately, there's not a lot of places that are going to support all of it, right? There might be like, okay, well, let's just talk about the miscarriage, not
Yeah.
in relation to anything else. And so like, we really view um pregnancy and infant loss as, it impacts every aspect of somebody's life. Like, there's people that will quit their job after they have a pregnancy loss because they're like, holy shit, I just went through this really significant thing and I realized I hate my job.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in a way, that was kind of like what happened to me, right? Like, I don't want to go back into social work. I've seen something significant, and I want to do something different. There's people whose relationships completely fall apart and end. Like you said, like your partner had a very different approach to it than what
Mhm.
you were experiencing, and I think that so every aspect of someone's life is affected or impacted by loss, and so it makes so much sense that like we have to make room for all of it, because we just don't know what's going to come up and when. And if we limited people, then we would really be saying like, we're not actually supporting like the entire journey or depth of the experience.
Mhm. Yeah, it all seems to like tie into itself. I know that for me, like, I know you've talked a bit about, like people who need extra support and, people who like are discriminated against from the get-go before they even have any of these things. And I know that going through the losses has made me feel like I want to fight harder for everyone's right all the time, because what I felt like, for me is I wish I would have had better care in my first one. Like if I could have not gone through that traumatic miscarriage, if I could have just had an abortion, I would have saved myself so much misery. And if I would have had someone like you to talk to about, the feelings of it and all the things that it could have come through, instead of just harboring it all alone, it's very scary. And you don't know, like what are you gonna who are you going to talk to about this? Especially because it's such like a taboo topic. People are like, "Oh my God, don't talk about that. Don't talk about abortions." You're like, "Well, why not? It's healthcare, and it's a choice you made in the time, and you need support. You deserve support through it."
Yeah. Yeah. And it's real, it boils down to like reproductive justice, right? Like, we all deserve choice, we all deserve care, we all deserve support. And that's kind of how I've viewed this work entirely, is that it is a reproductive justice lens and framework that we're offering folks.
I'm so glad that you are out here fighting the fight for everybody. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
So I know that you have multiple rising from the ashes stories, but there's another one that you haven't shared yet
Yeah.
that I would love to hear and add to our story if you're willing to share it.
Yeah, absolutely willing. when I had these pregnancy losses, I was in a heterosexual presenting marriage. I always knew that I was queer in my sexuality before I married a very straight man. And but it was just something that I knew in my head, and he also knew that. When we had our pregnancy, our marriage, we got divorced, and I would say we got divorced like over 3 years now. Um, and there's obviously many reasons why people get divorced, right? Like, it's not one reason. I will say that our pregnancy losses and those experiences were, I would say, like that first kind of unraveling of our marriage. I coped very differently. He coped very differently, and soon we were coping very differently apart. And then of course there was other reasons. We ended up getting a divorce. And for me, well, as you know, I've spoken about it. I am East Indian. Culturally, getting a divorce is not what you do. So, so that was like always in the back of my head. Like, my parents were very supportive, but in the back of my head, I was always like, oh my gosh, like I am like culturally just like shaming my family and, like balancing all of that. And that's actually why I stayed in that marriage for as long as I did. We were married 13 years. I probably was thinking about divorce like for probably 10 years out of that 13 years. And what the voice in my mind kept telling me is, you're going to disappoint your family. Because culturally, it was just, they were so happy I was married. And there was a lot of focus on being married and having a kid. And so I was like, okay, well, and I used to like battle with it. Like, it's not that bad. Like, you can be happy, like, trying to reason with myself. Eventually then I was like, no, like I deserve to also be happy and live like life for me. And so we ended up getting divorced. Very, very soon after that, I was like, yeah, no, I like don't think men are for me. like at all. So I knew that I was queer always, like before, and then it kind of like flipped its head on like, okay, like you are a lesbian, you're like, you only want to be dating women and you need to be honest about that. And so and I always joked with my parents, like when we were married, I was like, oh, if we ever get divorced, like I'm like not gonna be with a man, like I'm gonna find a woman. And I think they always thought it was a joke, but internally I was like, oh, like this is me foreshadowing what's gonna happen here. And they kind of all were like, ha ha ha. And then soon after we got divorced, this woman who I had a professional relationship with asked me out on a date. And it was in the height of COVID as well. So like my family was being very COVID cautious. And so I was like, oh, I got to tell them that I'm going to be like going on this date. And so then I told them, and it was a woman, and they were all kind of like, oh, okay. And then I was like, yeah, so that's a thing. And ended up dating like a few other women. And then my family really realized, oh, like she wasn't joking when she was talking about the women. And now I'm in we're actually celebrating our 1 year anniversary this weekend.
Congratulations.
Yes, with my girlfriend, and who you got to meet briefly at Pride. And it feels so good to be like out. Like I always, like I said, knew that I was queer, but it was always very hush hush. It was like I would whisper it. I said it to like my husband at the time. I would say it to a few friends, never to my family. And now it's just nice to like, this is who I am. My parents really love my new partner. My kiddo really loves my new partner. And still though, like I have a lot of like Indian family who like, some of them don't know, or some of them know and don't say anything. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I didn't go through, the courage and the strength that it took to leave that marriage for me to not live out loud. Like maybe now I'm to the point where it's obnoxious for some people because I talk about it all the time, and I'm in a healthy relationship and I'm happy, very much like you, Stephanie. That's why like I started following your TikTok and how we got connected, because I was like, you know what, and be proud and be like, flaunt your love, because at the end of the day, like we didn't burn our lives down, to just be like these quiet, meek women in the corner. That's not me anyways. It's not you.
Me neither.
And so I'm like, and I think it's so lovely too to like see other women. Like I found a lot of comfort in seeing your story, like because you met your fiance, I think, like a little bit before I had met my partner now, and it gave me hope. I was like, okay, like there is a second chapter, you know, this isn't the last or the final. So yeah, so that was my other burning down a big one, a very big one.
I love that. And I think also, like, again, you said, oh, well, it took me 10 years. Like, you thought about it for 10 years.
10
Like, oh,
years.
you should just be grateful. Again, just be
Yeah.
grateful for what you have. I had a very similar experience. I looked around and I was like, oh, I have a better marriage than all of these people because everybody hates their husband. I was like, I don't hate my husband. Like, I'm not romantically attracted to him, but I don't hate him. He's a nice
Right.
guy.
Right.
He's hilarious, right? Like,
Mhm.
and that's what kept me there for so long. Because I was like, oh, well, everyone else is miserable. I'm medium happy. I should be
Mm.
grateful.
Right. Medium happy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, well, no, actually, I want like big. I
Yeah.
want
Full
big,
happy.
loud, and I want someone who will love me out loud all the time, so loudly to everyone who will listen.
Yes. Yes.
And people were like, just stop that. That's like, that doesn't happen. That happens in movies. And I was like, well, what if it doesn't only happen in movies? And then
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like, haha, see, I told you. But like,
Exactly.
I had to believe it before I knew it because I'd never been in romantic love before.
Mm.
Ever. Like I hadn't
Mm.
ever experienced that. I had not like had a high school sweetheart and then been like, I'll find that again. I like literally had never felt it.
Me
And I was like,
too.
no, I was like,
Yeah.
I have heard of this. There is no way that Taylor Swift sings this much about something I have not experienced if it's not true.
It's so true. Yeah. Yeah.
She would know. But
Yeah.
I was like, it's gotta be there. I want to feel that. And that's like
Mhm.
literally what kept me chasing and being like, no, I'm gonna not give up. I'm gonna go for better than what I should be grateful for.
Yeah.
I had a house. Like I literally had a white picket fence. Like I had all of the things. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, no,
Yeah. No.
I want more. And people blasted me for it. They're like, how could you? How could you this? How could you that? And now I'm like, my kids get to watch me be so brave and so cool and so like I never would have had this business if I hadn't come out and done all of this. I never would have any of these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it all had to start with me being like, I'm actually going to not be, I am grateful, but I'm not going to be grateful enough to stay here. Like,
Yes.
I want more than this. And I'm going to take the lesson, I'm going to take the anger, and I'm going to like turn it into fire that's going
Yeah.
to change the world.
Totally. Totally. And yet, like, you deserve to be full happy, not like
Yeah.
medium happy, full happy. And I was the same way. Like, now that I'm actually in love, in a healthy relationship, I'm like, wow, I never had experienced romantic love. I didn't know that. And I'm a very, like, I believe in love. I love love. But I really realized, like, wow, I've never actually experienced that for myself. And it's wonderful. So I'm like, I'm not going to tone it down. I'm
You
going
will
to keep.
never shut up about this.
Yeah. Like, I think that everyone deserves to be loved like that. I think our children deserve to see us being like loved like that and also loving like that. I think for my kiddo anyways, he has really has said has been on board with this relationship because he's like, I've never seen you happier. My mom has said that. My mom said that to my partner. She was like, I've never seen her happier. And I think the people that love us deserve to see us thriving and being our best like versions of ourselves, which I
Mhm.
didn't obviously get that opportunity in my marriage because I was not full happy.
Yeah. Me too. Like the kids are like, they don't just say, Mom, you're happier. They say, we're happier.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like they actually say that all the time.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're happier. We have this. We have this. And like, it's not just me. It's all of us. Like that was what like absolutely crippled me from actually making the decision in the beginning. I was like, I'm going to destroy my children's lives. And now I look,
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm really glad I didn't stay and destroy their lives
Right.
because they needed to see me do this and they needed to know that there's something bigger for them too.
So much so. Yeah, that was like my biggest fear is like, oh my goodness, like my child, my son, what will happen? And yeah, like he's like written me notes like I'm grateful that you've left my dad, like, to lack of better words, because like it gave him and I this big like opportunity to live fully, like both of us.
Yeah.
And for him to see me making those decisions is one of the healthiest things I think I could have ever done, rather than like playing myself small and trying to fit into places and just be grateful. Saying
Hmm.
like, I deserve more.
Yeah, because you can't just say like, I don't deserve it in this area of my life, but I do in this area of my life,
Mhm.
right? Because people are like, oh, well, I'm going to play small. I'm going to like placate everybody, but I really want to grow my business and make a shit ton of money. I'm like, you're going to never reach the level of success you want in like the other parts of your life if you're playing small in one. Like it is across the board. You have to.
So
Like I was thinking about that this week. I'm like, when I was married, on paper, we made good money, quote unquote. If you're watching the listening, you can't see my quotes, but like we were paycheck to paycheck. We were like never, ever okay. And I'm like, and now I'm like, we are planning this crazy, beautiful, elaborate wedding. Like they come to me because they're like, well, mom will buy it. Like that's what we are now. We're not like, but I never would have reached any success in my business if I would have stayed like, oh, well, I don't really deserve this. I don't really deserve that. And I think that's a huge thing that women are up against over and over again is they're like, oh, well, I couldn't possibly ask that. But also, I wish I could gain this success. I'm like, girl, you got to do it everywhere in your life. Like,
totally,
grant yourself permission and like grant yourself permission to like go and heal from the losses you had,
totally.
right? Like, take that and go and do it because it affects every other part of your life.
Oh, 100%. That's why when I started the charity, and I started like sharing my story, and we really have that, like, I'm gonna use DEI as the phrase just because that's what people know, but like working from that equitable lens.
Hmm.
I say to people all the time, like, this isn't us doing it because it's trendy or because it's cool. This is my life. And like you said, I can't be over here being like, I'm like a racialized queer woman and and then like tampering it down in the charitable space that I've created. Like, it across the board, I have to be loud and I have to be like always speaking about it and thinking about it. And so like we have a queer family building group. So whether people have experienced pregnancy or infant loss or not, this queer family group is in partnership with Families Matters, and it is for families that are queer who are building families, because it is different for queer families and there's layers to it. And so that group is really important for me to have to host. We have, like, the racialized piece and the BIPOC piece is always throughout all of it, because yeah, like, I can't just be loud in some areas. I can't just be, okay, now I've come out of my marriage and I'm, with a woman, and then just ignore that there's lots of other people like me out there that also are going through building families and reproductive journeys that need support. Right. So
Hmm.
I fully agree. Like, we can't be loud in one area and then tamper ourselves down in another. You won't find alignment or success that way at all.
I 100% agree. And I love that you have all these things that you speak about and that you're open and honest about it, because I think that the cultural climate, the political climate right now it's terrifying for anybody who isn't a white dude, basically.
Yeah.
It's people are like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that." And
Politics
I'm
are
like,
gonna, you like, people are like, I don't do politics. I'm like, well, politics are doing you. Like,
yeah, right?
whether we now
So
want to admit it or not.
like saying I don't want to talk about it is just saying, well, it doesn't affect me enough for me to give a shit. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's not going to work for me. And I talk about this all the time. I'm like, if you are doing any kind of work where you're trying to work with other people, like you have to be honest about how you feel about this. Otherwise, people aren't going to invest with you. They aren't going to work with you. They want to do any of that stuff. I will not drop big dollars with somebody unless I know damn well which side of history they're on.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
people are shying away, and I'm like, no, do not. Like,
Yeah.
this is the only way that the world changes is if we get to stand up and be like, no, actually, we support all of these things. And also, we're going to put a huge amount of effort into helping others and creating our own success. Like,
Yeah.
they're not one or the other. And
Yeah.
it has to go hand in hand.
Totally agree. And like, the political atmosphere is really tough because we are a charity. We actually just moved into a new larger space. Like, we just had our open house last week. And we, at the same time of signing the lease here, we found out that our biggest grant, which was through the government of Alberta, has been pulled. And it's happening across the province, where anything that isn't fitting their values and their criteria is being pulled. And it's primarily women-funded organizations that are allowed about what we stand for, that are different than what the government stands for. So it's a significant hit to us. And so we had a lot of conversation of, what do we do? And like, we're going into 2026 with a 25% like gap in our funding. And could we start to play it a little more safe? Could we tone down our message? Could we do that? Yeah, we could. Will we? No. We will find other people that are aligned to fill that 25% funding gap. I have full faith in that, because when one person leaves because they're not aligned, it makes room for like 20 more that are aligned. Yeah, we're not going to be toning it down.
I am so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so if people are listening and they're like, well, I want to support you,
Yeah.
how can they do that? Or if they need to access the help that you give?
Yeah, so you can visit our website, which is pilsk.org. And also, because it is October right now when we're having this conversation, it's October 1st. October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and we are actually running a campaign to try and get 25 new monthly donors this month, just to help us continue to fill that funding gap as we move into 2026. So donors, you can access the donation site, and then for people who are wanting to access service, it's the same website.
And I'll put that in the show notes for anybody who's listening and didn't write that down.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. I am so glad that we got to do this. And I'm glad that we got to do this in October, because this is an important month for this. And I'm really, really glad that you were able to share your story. And I know others will really appreciate it. And for anybody listening, please share this with a friend and make sure that you head over there and drop a donation in, because just because the government says it's not worth funding doesn't mean it isn't. Let's boost it up. Let's get past the 25%. Let's make it bigger. That's what I want. That's my wish. And it's my birthday this month, so you guys all have to grant my wish. That's my birthday wish. It's over the 25%. So let's share it. Thank you so much for coming. And I hope that we can have another chat another time soon, because I love this. And thank you so much for being so honest and open. I think it's so needed, and I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's really a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody who's listening, make sure you share with a friend, and we will see you next time on the next episode. See you later.